In the interest of time, I'll introduce our presenters here and we can get going. So thank you so much to Justin McLean and Megan Leclerc, who are going to be presenting on children's mental health and supporting children in crisis. So they'll kind of go over their menu and what they're going to be talking about today. I'm just going to read. You're going to see me reading because they have a lot of extensive experience between the two of them, so I don't want to forget. So start with Justin. So Justin is a child and youth care practitioner with over 20 years of experience. He's committed to improving the lives of young people who need help in overcoming their social, emotional, academic, behavioral, and addictions challenges. He is dedicated to anti-racist and anti-oppression practices, which inform his work in crisis management and creating safe environments for young people with complex needs. He has extensive experience working with clients and families in various mental health settings, including live-in treatment, complex needs classrooms, in-home support, and crisis. And Megan is a child and youth counselor with over 10 years of experience working with a variety of individuals within the mental health field. She works from a trauma-informed lens using a brief narrative therapy approaches, DBT skills-based strategies, and from an anti-oppressive and anti-racist practice. She has used these skills in various settings, including preventative community-based programs, live-in treatment, school-based CYC support, intensive in-home service, domestic family violence, crisis management, and a secure psychiatric program within a hospital setting. She is eager and dedicated to continuing to build and grow her knowledge and experience within the mental health field and crisis management. She brings a strong desire to support individuals with their mental health as she has her own lived experience with mental health, and specifically throughout her adolescent years. She recognizes the importance that the role of crisis counselor and all mental health support staff have within our communities. So thanks so much to the two of you for agreeing to be here. I did drop in the chat the website for Crisis Workers Society of Ontario. So this will be recorded and you'll be able to access it after the fact. This is a resource that throughout Ontario, crisis workers have come together. I'm one of the board of directors on there, and we provide education and resources ongoing to crisis workers in Ontario. So generally, we would be in person, have a large conference, but because we can't do that this year, we have a workshop each day this week where we're putting on the conference online for free for everyone. So I will turn it over to you, Justin and Megan, and thanks so much for being here.
All right, thanks, folks. Justin is muted, and I see he was trying to speak.
Thanks, Leah, for the introduction. So just give me a moment. I'm just going to get our presentation started.
All right, welcome, folks, and thanks for being with us here on this rainy day, at least in the Kitchener-Waterloo region. We're here from the Mobile Crisis Team with Lutherwood, and we're here to support your learning with crisis assessments with young people. As we move through our presentation today, we will have some time for breaks and questions, and we do ask that we hold all of our questions until those times that have been built into this presentation. So if you have a question, you can write it down, and we have held some space for those questions to be asked.
Before we begin, I would just like to go through a land acknowledgement. It is with gratitude and appreciation we would like to acknowledge that the employees of Lutherwood are currently learning, working, and benefit within the ancestral boundaries of the Haldimand Tract, which includes 6 miles on each side of the Grand River. This is the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee people. The territory is steeped in rich Indigenous history and knowledge, as well as a modern tradition, and is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island. As a community, we have the responsibility to honor and respect the 4 directions, the land, water, plants, animals, and ancestors. We honor that these nations of people have been in relationship with this land from time immemorial and continue to do so today. As Canadian citizens, we need to take responsibility to read, understand, and do our part for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's call to action, and encourage everyone living on or visiting Turtle Island to do the same. Now, before we get started and go any further, I just thought that we could just do a grounding together. The information we're going to talk about can be dense. At times it can be hard to process and listen to as we're talking about young people in crisis. So I just thought this would be a nice way for us to be coming to the space together and be centered. You're welcome to participate. If you don't want to participate, that's completely okay. So I'm going to go through the instructions and then I'll guide us through the grounding. So I'll invite everyone to place one hand on their belly and the other on their lap. You're welcome to keep your eyes open or closed. And what we're going to do together is we're going to take a deep breath and then we're going to begin to hum. You're going to hum from your belly. For some people that's not possible based on noise in your area, you're welcome just to do like a low hum underneath your breath. But if you are able to participate in the humming, it can be quite helpful. So you're going to continue to hum until it feels like you pushed all the air out of your body. Then after, you just take another breath and you're going to resume to hum. We're going to continue this for 1 minute and I'll let everyone know when we're complete. So just keep going for as long as you can for the minute and we'll go from there. So I will start us off and feel free to follow along. Thank you, everyone. So we did have this little slide about us, your presenters, but since Aaliyah did such a wonderful job introducing us, we're going to move on.
All right, folks, so we want to take a moment to introduce ourselves and the agency a little bit more that we work for. So Lutherwood is a leading agency for children's mental health for the region of Waterloo. As an agency, we strive to be a progressive, not-for-profit health and social justice, social service organization. So Justin and I are from the Mobile Crisis team, and we service young people, caregivers, and families in the Waterloo region who are in immediate need for support around safety. We offer brief service, typically up to 3 weeks, along with providing ongoing access to our private crisis line. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about our processes, our assessments, and strategies and resources that we use with our clients day to day. Some of the things that we're going to talk about and share with you folks today is the structure of our assessments, suicide and homicide risk considerations, non-imminent risk considerations, engaging with young people, engaging with their caregivers, family conflict considerations, safety planning, and mobile crisis services, as well as our resources and strategies.
I'm going to begin just talking about our structure for assessment. So when we're approaching any situation with crisis with any young person, it really depends on what's happening, the age of the young person, and how we're approaching the situation. The first thing we're looking at is imminent risk and always keeping that a priority. If something is showing up for the young person that needs immediate attention, we're going to do our best to address that situation as soon as possible. Then we're going to want to complete a risk assessment to understand what's happening for the young person and the family. And in that moment, we can do a verbal safety plan with the young person and their caregivers, just seeing what can happen in the direct moment while we're talking with them when we're opening up the assessment. We want to provide crisis support in the method that the young person prefers. So that's either going to be either video, phone, and as much as I'm not a fan of it, it's going to be text if that's what they're looking to get service through. We want to collect relative information on the young person's current state, the possible risk factors. We're looking at any other stressors and also any protective factors that are needed or that helps them out. We also want to look for information on diagnosis, medication, personal identity, accessibility needs, and any other collaterals involved that we can get a full picture of what's happening for this young person. Then we'll go through and offer our mobile crisis service. If the young person and caregiver consent to service, we'll move forward with creating a plan for facilitating an in-person or virtual meeting with the individuals. And as well, we'll also be looking at connecting any young person to any community-based resources that could be helpful for them.
So while we are completing our assessments, we're going to take in consideration suicide and homicide risk factors. And so some of the things that we do when we're assessing for suicide and homicide risk is taking threats seriously. So when a young person makes a threat of harming themselves or others, we take that very seriously. Approaching with curiosity, asking lots of questions, getting a good idea of kind of what's going on for them and how we can best support them. Exploring how to keep them safe. And this can be supports within the family or supports on how they can help support them being safe or what we can do to help support them being safe. Some of the questions that are important for us to ask is, do they have a plan? Do they have means to access or enact their plan? Do they have the intent to follow through with their plan? Really getting a good idea of the level of risk. Have they attempted suicide before? Have they self-harmed before? Are there supports to keep them safe? Safety proofing the home. So this might be with themselves and or hopefully caregivers. How can we keep those items that might be harmful to themselves when they're having big feelings or emotion, big feelings in those moments, or starting to have those thoughts or things of those natures. So we're really going to talk about, removing sharp objects, knives, anything that's going to help support keeping them safe when they're in their home. Setting limits on what the family can manage on their own and when to involve additional supports. So talking about what can the family manage and what other supports can they reach out to if they're feeling like they're no longer able to manage keeping the youth safe. It's also important to take into consideration developmental ages when assessing for suicide and homicidal risk. So we're going to ask questions to help our understanding, such as, what does it mean to be dead? What happens when you die? Where do you go when you die? Really getting an idea of their thoughts around what death is and what's beyond death. So some non-imminent risk considerations might be family conflict. So while we're going through our assessments, as Justin had shared, we're really going to be exploring family dynamics and what's going on within the household that they're residing in and within the family. Self-harming behaviors without suicidal ideation. Do they self-harm with a way to cope with what's going on for them, within them, or around them? Aggression, verbal or physical, towards themselves or others. Running, and this could be running from caregivers or even running from different environments such as a school. Addiction and substance use, and then high-risk behaviors.
So engaging the young person. Whenever possible, we always want to engage with the young person first, giving them an opportunity to share their story and to be heard and letting that happen. whenever we can. It's not always possible, but that's definitely the optimal position we want to be in to start off. If the young person is over the age of 12, they must consent to service. So we do get this a lot where we do get referrals into our service, or people want their young person to engage in our service and the young person doesn't want to. They have to consent if they're over 12. And then we want to support the young person with understanding the role of the caregiver and support them with their challenges. So whenever possible, we do want their caregiver to be involved. We want them to understand that if their caregiver can be involved in our service with them, that could definitely help out the situation. That's not always possible, and the young person gets to make the choice if that's going to happen, especially if they're over 12. We want to try to meet the young person where they're at. And this is in a physical sense in regards of where we're meeting them for getting together, if we're doing a virtual meeting, an in-person meeting, also developmentally meeting them where they're at, and making sure that we're looking at the skills, strategies, and goals that make sense for where they are developmentally. And whenever possible, we do want to take their comfortability into consideration. Anything we can do to help that comfortability will increase safety. And if we can create safety, we're going to have a better results and experience in service with the young person. We really want to understand their perspective of the situation. It's really important to really understand and to consider what's happening for them. We don't want to add in our own pieces or try to fix their perception or tell them the perception is wrong. We really want to honor what's happening for them in that moment. It's about them. And we want to listen for the meaning and validate their experience. So what's being said? What's behind the words they're saying? Is there anything else they're trying to communicate to us that they haven't been able to use their words for? And just really validating anything that is coming up for them, letting them know that we're here for them and we're listening. We also want to make sure that we're coming at this with a compassionate and non-judgmental lens. Anytime we're bringing judgment into the conversation, and as workers, this is something that we do need to check in for ourselves. If judgment is showing up, you are running the risk of activating a fight, flight, or freeze response for the young person. And once we know we're in that state, there's no learning happening, there's no healing happening. They are only looking at a way to survive. So taking our own personal judgments out of what we think should happen or what we think the cause of something is, there's no place in it for this moment when we're dealing with crisis. We also want to take a look at their behaviors and seeing all the behaviors as communication. So the communication can come as looking at, but we have an angry outburst. What's the communication here? What are they really trying to say, right? Or if someone is engaging in self-harm behavior, what is the meaning for that? What are they trying to say? And just being open-minded to what that looks like and exploring that with them about what they really are trying to tell us with their behavior. We also want to get their input on planning next steps for their safety plan. What makes sense for them? Do they want to create a safety plan? Do they have to go through something else and look at calling it something different, like a strategies list instead of a safety plan? Just again, meeting them at their needs, what they want, what they think is going to make sense for them. And then we want to look at their strengths, what they're good at, what they enjoy, and what other supports can help them along the way. And then, as always, at the end of service, we really want to offer some community-based resources. What can we do to help them get connected to any other community supports? Really important to make sure that we're not leaving someone isolated after a crisis situation. And then we also want to engage with caregivers. Like I said, whenever possible, we really want them involved. A young person is not isolated. There are people around them that take care of them. And if they can be involved to help out so that young person isn't in isolation, we're going to have better results. So we do want to check in with the caregiver and get a sense of how they're feeling. And we put this here first because we really do want to understand how the caregiver is feeling in this moment. It's helping us judge if we're looking at, is there any capacity issues for that caregiver? Are they so worn out that they're not going to be able to be the full support? And then so we want to be able to help a caregiver with that as much as possible. And we want to get their perspective on the current situation. What's happening for them? What do they see happening for the young person? What history is showing up in these behaviors and what they can see and connect those with? And just like the young person, we want to validate their emotions and their perspectives. And again, also compassionately and non-judgmentally. If we have a parent that's going into a fight, flight, or freeze, we're also going to have a challenging time with navigating the crisis situation as a whole for this family. So don't bring our judgments into it. At no point do we want to do anything that has to do with any parent blaming or anything that's going to activate anything for that parent. They just need to know they're supported and that we're here to help them with their young person. We want to ask for their input on the safety plan. Most caregivers are going to know the young person the best. So if a young person gives us an idea for a strategy and just because they heard it before, the parent's like, you know what, we tried that a lot and that is not working. That they just say that because they want people to hear that. And so we can take a look at that and adjust these plans to make sense for the young person with these inputs from the parent. We also want to offer specific resources for the caregiver related to the young person's challenges around safety. So anything we can do, and we will get into resources later on in our presentation where we'll give everyone access to some resources for that they can use with young people and caregivers. So it is going to be there, but we do want to offer them what we can as well. And also with going to community-based resources, we want to be able to help connect them to the community. So again, being a caregiver, dealing with the crisis with the young person, it can create a lot of loneliness and that I'm dealing with it all on my own. Anything we can do to get connected to the community so people know they're not dealing with it all on their own can really be helpful. If possible, we do want to share the safety plan with caregivers that the young person creates. If they're over the age of 12, we do need consent to share the safety plan. And this is where we really want the young person to hopefully be engaged with their caregivers at the time. And if the young person is over the age of 12 and they're saying they don't want service, we do get parents and caregivers that they want to push the young person into service. The young person is not interested. What we can do then is offer a parent-only service as well. Can we just connect with the parent, with the caregiver, help them with some strategies and skills they can use in the moment while they're supporting the young people in their life?
As mobile crisis workers, we always consider family dynamics and possible conflict. At times, we may see an increase in family conflict when a young person is experiencing challenges. And so some of the things that we might consider with the young person and the family is what they're needing. So really trying to understand what the family needs and what the young person needs. Are there safety concerns due to the conflict? Is conflict so high that now there's some concerns around the youth safety or others' safeties within the home? Should we meet together or separately? What feels best and feels right for the family and the young person? Do they need a plan to manage their conflict? Can we support with that plan? How can we support with that plan? Collaborative problem solving is also a good option. So developing a plan for immediate or near future, or even for the rest of the day. So is there something going on right now that we need to help support the family with, and then planning for that safety piece in those time frames? And soliciting input from child, youth, and caregivers. What are they needing? What's going to feel best for them? What's going to help them in those moments? And consider accessing informal supports as a part of the plan. So what we mean by that is there family? Is there close friends that the young person can go and spend a day, a night with, to kind of give the family a bit of a break, and then we can come back and kind of figure out a better plan or a longer term plan. We also give space and time for debriefing as well. It may not be in that moment, but we'll offer the next day or after, just really supporting with the debriefing after conflict too.
Now we're just going to go through safety planning in general. How do we create a safety plan? What are some things and some information we're looking for, and how we can support a young person and caregiver with developing their plans? So the first thing we want to do is ask the young person what makes them feel safe. We need safety first. Without safety, nothing is going to happen. We're not going to achieve anything authentic in this situation or in this plan. Without that safety, chances are this plan is just going to go in a drawer or be in an inbox and it will never be looked at again. So what's going to help them feel safe has to come first. Then we want to help them identify their triggers and their physical and emotional indicators that they become aware of when they become upset or escalated. And this is a really important piece. A lot of times we're looking at young people that have triggers and they're not conscious of their triggers. They're not conscious of their physical reactions. They're not conscious of the emotions that are showing up in the time. So we really want to help bring those things into consciousness for them. So when it's on the plan, they can look at, oh, I did have a fight with my sister and that does trigger me. So they can see that, okay, I know what's happening here. Or my hands are getting clammy and sweaty. That does mean that I'm getting upset. And we want them to be able to look at that and be conscious that's happening, or that their face is getting red, or they're clenching their fists, or they're feeling really sad. Anything we could do, again, just to really bring that into consciousness. Then we want to identify the strategies that have been helpful for them in the past. All young people have the things they like, the things they do, the things they know work for them, right? Sometimes things get overwhelming and those things don't work, but we really want them with their ideas to come first. This plan is for them, so their ideas matter the most. And then we want to create a list of the meaningful ideas that support the young person in the moment. So again, just the things they like, what's happening? Is it journaling? Is it listening to music? Whatever that's going to be that they're directly interested in, we want that first. Then as workers, this is where we can come in and we can suggest other options and strategies that make sense for the young person in the family. So this is when I know Megan and I, we have our go-tos that we think will fit certain situations, and we'll put those suggestions and strategies in. And again, we are going to go through some of those strategies later on in the presentation. And we also want to consider in the informal supports along with the crisis support services. So sometimes we try these strategies, we have this really wonderful plan and they try the strategies, they don't work. Or things escalate so quickly, there's not even a chance to try those strategies. And this is when we want to make sure all the information is available for them, for the crisis line, for any hospital or emergency services that are going to help. So here we do just have an example of the safety plan. I know it's squished and small. This is also going to be accessible to everyone after the break as well. We'll give a full page of the safety plan that's not so squished and small. But just to give an example of what this is looking like. So right here, we always want to have the client identifying information. So the client's name. Down here, we want to add their caregivers, their parents, other people that are going to be involved that care about this young person. Up here, this is where we put the crisis worker's name. We do short-term service, so I don't know if we're always going to be memorable, but if they need to contact us in the future, we want to make sure they have a way to contact us and know who we are. And here we want the phone number and address for completion. It helps with our records, but also for when you're in a crisis situation, you'll be surprised at what you forget. And you forget your address, you forget your phone number. So just having something to read off to help you out if you need it when getting emergency help, it's helpful to have here. Now here, we're just putting what is the high-risk behavior? What's the issue? It's really important to be as blunt as possible. We don't want this fluffed up in a way to make it seem like it's not as severe as it is. We wanted to create this in a way that's comfortable for the young person, but also makes sense that it's clear what we're dealing with. So we will say that this young person, when being overwhelmed, may have thoughts about cutting. And that's what we'll put. We'll put that right there like that. Or it may be that this young person is having intrusive thoughts of suicide. We want to make sure that's really put here. Or there's aggression. They'll start throwing things when angry. So just really, really being clear. Now down in here, this is what I talked about before, putting those pre-crisis points. What are the triggers? What's the emotional response? What's physically happening in the body at that moment? We want to put as much as we can here, but not to the point where it's overwhelming information. So just the key ones, the ones that are the most important. Now here in this section, this is where we put the strategies. This is where their ideas come into play. This is where our suggested strategies come into play, and we want to make sure they're here with the instructions on how to do all these activities. So we don't want to say do breathing and that's the end of it. We want the instructions on what the breathing exercise that they're connecting with is here as well. Now we also add this section here of who is responsible. Now this isn't for blaming, but we do want to make sure who's going to be in charge of what part of the plan. So if I'm dealing with an older teenager, chances are they can be responsible for this part. But if we're working with someone who is 6, 7, 8 years old, we'll have to put that parents need to help guide these activities. And sometimes we'll even hybrid that, where we'll have a teenager that needs some extra support. So we'll say it's their responsibility and that it's okay for parents to remind them of these strategies. Now we're going down here. So maybe these strategies didn't work. Maybe things escalated so quickly. This is where, again, we can add some triggers and some points in this section that is letting the client know maybe it's time to call for help. maybe it's time to reach out to a crisis line. So right here, we do have the Kids Help Phone already set up here, but also when building a safety plan, just making sure you have the local crisis numbers for your area that can also go in here. We also want options. If they try to call one and it's a long wait list, which does happen, or if they try to call one and maybe they get disconnected. So if we can have multiple options, it can be really helpful. And then lastly, we go down here of what is the hardest thing to do. And this is when safety is at risk. The goal here is safety comes first. It doesn't matter what we have to do to make sure safety happens. As long as we're safe, we can pick up the pieces afterwards and deal with what happened. So that means if we need any emergency services, we want to use that here. If we need to call 911, this is where it's happening. If we need to get to the hospital. And sometimes it happens that we try these strategies and they don't work. Sometimes they call the crisis line and we're thinking, you know what, we have to guide you to this plate now because there's nothing we can help you with over the phone. And same as the top here, we have these responsibility area right here of who's responsible. And this really does depend on the young person, the caregivers, about what's happening in this area. Who can they get help with to do these things if they need it? And we want to add that here. Lastly, we have a section for notes. Where I use this is just really making sure we have the date the safety plan was created. If possible, we do want this to be a living document. We want this to be updated whenever possible. If we find a strategy doesn't work, let's take it out. We'll add something else in. Or if something new comes up from them in their life, they go, oh, this would be really helpful. We want to add that. And then keep updating the dates of this plan so we know how recent it is.
All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about our mobile crisis line service. And so we service individuals who have had some degree of contact within our program. We are a small team, so we do offer crisis support services between Monday through Friday between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Outside of those timeframes, we do partner with other organizations in the community, but we also offer and explore other resources, crisis support services for those individuals. So when we're creating a safety plan, as Justin had, just spoke about, we're going to explore what's going to feel best for them. And if they've even had positive experiences with other crisis support services or phone numbers, texting services, whatever worked for them. And we're going to put that into their plan so they know that outside of our time frame, they know who they can contact and they feel comfortable with that. So when we are providing crisis support service, we will answer the call and we're going to listen to the young person or the caregiver's concerns. Throughout this time frame, we're going to remain calm and neutral. We're going to assure that safety can be maintained in that moment. And if safety cannot be maintained, we're going to direct them to connect with emergency services, or we're going to support that. We're going to co-regulate with the person on call and give reassurance. So when we talk about co-regulating, we mean, talking in a very calm tone, maybe even asking them to take some deep breaths with us, really trying to be at a baseline that's not where they're at. We will say things like, we're here with you, we'll get through this together, we'll stay on this call with you as long as you need. And again, just like those deep breaths, maybe we might encourage a grounding activity or some sort of distraction strategy. We may not label it like that in the moment, but we're going to provide some of those options. If the caller is a caregiver, we're going to ask them to encourage their young person to talk to us. Sometimes they don't want to talk to us, and that's okay, but we have different ways that we try to engage with the young person. So we might ask the caregiver to put us on speakerphone, and we might try and engage with them in that way. And just being patient throughout that call to try and hopefully engage with the young person so we can support them the best way we can. We're going to model and encourage coping strategies. So like Justin had shared, we're going to refer back to that safety plan, and we're going to wonder if these things might be helpful, or we might even just try to go through some of these activities or strategies with them. We'll also talk to caregivers about supporting their youth with trying those strategies with them or offering those strategies to them as well. So we're going to debrief with the caller. So we also offer debriefing for caregivers to call after resolving high stress situations with their young person. So after, we've had a phone call and we're at a place where safety can be maintained and the youth or caregiver is stating that they feel like they're in a better place, we're going to, do that safety planning for like, can we maintain safety now? How about like in the next few hours, and trying to create a bit of a safety plan for the next period of time. But we're also going to offer a debriefing in that moment. If that debriefing is they're not ready for that debriefing, that's okay too. We can offer to call them back, or we can invite them to call us back at any time that feels best for them. And we can offer a debriefing after that as well. So safety plan or contract for safety with the caller, and encourage them to call back when needed. So again, doing that safety planning for the short term, longer term, and then call back if you're still needing support, or if things change, just call us back. We're here to support.
Thanks everyone for listening. I know that was a lot of information in a dense short time. So we do want to take a moment just to open up for questions. So if you do have a question, please raise your virtual hand under reactions at the top of your screen on Teams. We're going to call on people in the order of the raise hand. At that point, when we call on you, we can ask for you to unmute yourself if you do have a question that we can answer. We'll do our best to answer all questions. If we're unclear, please let us know. We'll be happy to reframe something, and we'll be open for a follow-up for that question if it's needed. So right now I see Catherine.
Yes, I have a question just for clarity for everybody who's on the call. If you have a youth that you're talking to and they consent to you helping them, but they do not want their caregivers to know, and they do not consent to you talking to their caregivers, can you still reach out to their caregivers?
Yeah, thanks, Catherine. Thanks for the question. It's a really great question. So it does depend for that answer, and that we want to try to honor that confidentiality as much as possible. But safety trumps everything. So whenever we are dealing with a situation, we do want to make sure the young person has their confidentiality met. If they don't want us to talk to caregivers, we'll do as much as we can. If we know there's going to be something that the caregivers essentially need for that child's safety, if we know they have a plan to run away in the middle of the night, we're going to want to talk to caregivers about that and make sure that is happening. So safety is the one thing that is going to trump confidentiality in these cases. So, and we'll also let the young person know that. We're not going to keep this a secret from them. We're not going to do this behind their back. We'll let them know. They'll say, hey, don't tell my parents about this. And I'll have to be honest with them. I'm sorry, I am going to tell your parents about this because safety is involved and a concern here.
And you can also be creative with the information that you're trying to share. So if you have a relationship with this youth, you can explore, what can I share with your parents? What would be okay? And try to like tease out, like, can I call them and say, like, maybe it would be helpful if, parents took away some of these sharp items that we might potentially harm ourselves with, or have thoughts to harm ourselves with, and then we don't have access to them. So really trying to explore, what can you share that's going to feel okay for the youth, but also keep them safe.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Catherine. And we'll just give a moment just in case any other questions pop up, if anything comes up or you think of anything. Okay, well, if any questions do come up or come to mind, we are going to have an opportunity for questions at the end of the presentation as well. So we are going to move on and just have a short break. We're just take a 15-minute break. So we do have 2 videos here. You're welcome to push play on them, and they will play only on your side. And so if you do want to listen to some music while you're on your break, And we'll ask everyone just to come back in 15 minutes time, get that drink of water, a snack, whatever you need. When we come back, we are going to have a downloadable file ready for everyone to download through the chat that is going to have a list of resources and a list of strategies that we use in our service. So when you're back, we'll get everyone set up with that download, and you're welcome to download it, and we'll start talking about some specific strategies and skills that we are using that will add to safety plans or just encourage young people and their caregivers to use. So thanks, everyone. So we'll see everyone back here at 2:46. Oh, sorry, 2:56. That's it. Okay, so we'll just start off with this polyvagal breathing exercise together. This is actually very similar to the grounding exercise we did at the beginning with the humming. And it's all about trying to connect our breath and just be with our breath in the moment. Now, we really want to do with this exercise is just really try to help with any young person that we're teaching this to. What I like to do actually is I'll tell them, let's make it a competition. Who can breathe out for the longest? And sometimes that's a really good way just to hook someone into doing this. And if you want to follow along with me, I'm going to go through with it, and I encourage you to do this one with me. So how we do this one is we take a deep breath in, and then we slowly breathe out. Now we're going to breathe out as slow as we can for as long as we can. When I'm working with a young person, I'll tell them to repeat this 3 times, but sometimes we'll set a timer for 3 minutes, sometimes even 5 or 10 minutes. And for doing this exercise for that 5-10 minute marks, it actually can turn into a meditation. So if you do want to follow along, please do. So I'll just invite everyone to take a deep breath in and then slowly breathe out. Just let it go for as long as you can. And then when you run out of breath, just another breath in. And then a slow breath out. Okay, and we'll just do one more together. Another breath in. And the slow breath out. So the reason why I personally really like this breathing exercise is that it is helping a young person get into safety, or any of us for that matter, if we're ever in high distress, if we have some really large emotions going on. What this is doing for us is just helping regulate our nervous system by controlling that breath, by doing the slow breath out. It's just letting your body know you're safe right now. Look what I can do. I can do this breath. I can breathe out slowly. I'm safe. And just hopefully bringing the whole situation down. Now, I do like different variations with this whenever we're working with young people, especially like the under 12 young people. Being as playful as you can is so helpful here. I had one client where we did this, and there was no catch for this. They didn't care about breathing out. And so you just turn it, instead of breathing out, turn it to an animal noise. Turn it into making the biggest, loudest breath you can for as long as you can. And like I said before, that competition, setting a timer, who can do it the longest? And I do have to say, through using this a lot, I'm pretty amazed. For me, if I'm timing myself, I can sometimes get a good 30 seconds, and I'm feeling proud about that. I work with one young person, and she made it to 45 seconds, and I was floored. But she did have a secret weapon. She was a clarinet player and had to practice those breaths out that way. And then another young person was able to make it to a minute, but again, he was a swimmer and again had to already practice a lot with that capacity of doing the slow breath out. So I just want to check in with you, Leah, about how we're doing, if you were able to receive that that email.
So while we wait for Leah, maybe I'll just keep going with like some of these breathing techniques. I have worked with lots of young kids, and so sometimes even like Justin was saying, making it into competition can be really helpful. I find animal breathing is really great with the younger kids. Pick your favorite animal, take a deep breath in, and then as you exhale, sound like your favorite animal. And they think it's funny, it gets them giggling, but also it allows them to get that big deep breath in, that deep breath out, but also making that noise, just like the humming, can be really helpful with our nervous system. There's also flower breathing, which is one of my go-tos. So like, imagine we have a flower. What color is the flower? And really engaging the kid into like talking about what the flower looks like. I've had really silly flowers, flowers that look like really silly things, or colors that are really like it's the grape color of grapes, really silly things, and just going with it, allowing them to be silly and laugh can be helpful. And then we're going to take a deep breath in and we're going to smell that flower. What does the flower smell like? And really engaging with them around that imaginative, play as well, but really getting them to think about, taking that deep breath in and what does this smell like?
Thanks, Megan. And yeah, and you can get really creative when it comes to breathing exercises. There's lots out there. And when we do get this file, I'll set up for you. And even if something happens and we're not able to work it out in this meeting, we will find a way that we can get it sent out somehow through the participants here, because there is a lot of really great information in there to pull from when working with young people, working with caregivers, resources to different crisis lines available throughout the province. So we just want to make sure everyone has access to that. And so what I'm going to do is I'll move on to a slide just talking about some of the resources that we do go through. So I'm going to go through and we'll talk about the resources for young people. So, and again, all of the instructions for all of these things that we have here, they will be in that package once we do get that worked out. So the first resource that is a personal favorite of mine that I'll go through, it's called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Some of you may be familiar with this. There's lots of variations of this, but I'll just go through how my favorite way to do this one. So the first thing we want to do for this is really help a young person get connected to the present moment. That's the purpose here. If they can be in the present moment, then there's a lot we could accomplish there. Where we get into problems, if a young person is stuck in the past, being really worried about something they did in the past or what someone did to them in the past, or if they're getting really anxious and worried about the future. When we're in those two spots, the chances are we're in a fight, flight, or freeze mode. So this can help us just get just to the present moment to make plans just for the next moment after this one. So the first thing I do is I'll ask, what are 5 things you can see? Letting the young person name out loud the 5 things they can see. Then 4 things you can hear, or sorry, the 4 things you can feel. And I'll explain that this can be any kind of feeling. This can be what you can feel with your hands. This can be what you can feel on your body or in your body. Is it that headache, that your stomach feels kind of funny, or there's a tingling in your toes? And it also could be any emotion that you're feeling. Any 4 things you can feel at all. Next, we ask what are 3 things that they can hear. Again, just giving them pause and moment to listen to the things around them. Typical response is, oh, I can hear your voice, because you're usually asking the question at that moment. But again, giving them options just to really appreciate the sounds around them. And then we ask them 2 things they can smell. Now, we do get, especially with the colder months coming, you get that stuffy nose, and this isn't possible. And that's okay. When that happens, if you get a young person who goes, I can't smell anything, my nose is stuffed up. And we just want to just celebrate that. But you know what? The fact that you're aware of that and you notice that, that means it's working. You're here. You understand what's happening there. And the last one, this is where there's lots of variation around it. So typically, it is one thing you can taste. but I did work with a 6-year-old and she was not having it. She was not having one thing I can taste. So she changed my view on this forever about this. And she's like, I'm not going to tell you that. That's silly. I'm going to tell you one thing I like about myself. And since then and forever, I've always asked, what is one thing you like about yourself? Something I also kind of interesting and funny about this too. Young people, they sometimes they'll take a few moments to consider, might have a little bit of problems. But when I'm helping caregivers and parents through this, they have the hardest time answering this question. So even just right now, I just want to invite everyone just to give that thought. Right now, what is one thing that you like about yourself? Just give it a moment. In fact, I'll even encourage if anyone wants to just type into chat that one thing that they like about themselves right now, if you feel like just jumping in there and letting us know. But don't feel obligated. Creativity. Thanks, Mark. You're a good listener, Catherine. Easy going, Paula. Thank you. And Megan, kind. And sense of humor. Elsie with kind. Humor. Yeah. And there's lots and lots. Reliable. So, and I just think it's really nice when we can connect that, when we can honor that part of us. Empathy, I see. So, and what that's like for a young person too. And sometimes we do get stuck. Maybe we're in a spot where we can't find that one thing we like about ourselves. And sometimes that's just, you know what? I had one young person and she told me, I just like my eye makeup today. And that was good enough. There was something that she connected that they liked about themselves. Okay, and I'll let you, Megan. I know you just talked about breathing a bit, but if there's anything else you want to mention about it.
Yes, and I do want to go back to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There's
Yeah.
lots of resources online as well. We do have some in our package, so hopefully that can get to you folks. But if you look online, you can find YouTube scripts. So somebody who doesn't really like to read, but can like be guided through listening, that can be helpful. There are really good picture ones. So like for younger ages or people who don't like to read too much, there's pictures. There's also ones with like actual scripts. So you read along with them and you can help support you getting grounded in that way. Back to breathing too. Yes, we have strategies in our resource list, and we did do a few with you folks as well. And again, if you search the amazing web, you can find lots of different videos and scripts to kind of help guide you through the deep breathing.
And next we have feelings and needs. This is one of my personal favorites and go-tos. This is something that we will be doing with everyone, and I'll give a further explanation of this together as a group. To how to do this, but it's really what I find really helpful about this is helping young people understand what is happening with their emotions. Like, what do their emotions mean? Why are they showing up? What's happening with them? Instead of just something that they, when someone's saying, well, I'm angry, right? Well, the first thing I would do is be like, well, you're not really angry, you're experiencing anger. And just letting them know that it's a part of them, but it's not who they are. But why are they angry? What is the anger? And they'll go, oh, my mom wouldn't let me do that thing I really wanted to do. And yeah, that's fair. You're angry. You don't get to do something you want to do. That's most of us. Most of us get angry when we can't do something we want to do. But I really want to figure out what's the need behind that. What's the need behind the feeling? What is really trying to get met? So we'll go through that together as a group and in a bit. It's just because it's going to take a little further explanation.
Thank you, Justin. The next one that we'll suggest to folks or go over with and explore as a resource is the TIP skill. And so this is a DBT based skill. So what it stands for is temperature, intense exercise, paired muscle relaxation, and paced breathing. So what happens is the temperature, how this can help support us. is it can help us calm down quickly when we're using cold temperatures. So we can use ice, we can use cold water, we can use a cold pack. My favorite thing is frozen paper towel with, I actually like to add an essential oil just to kind of help support that grounding piece. But anything that's cold that you can hold on to for at least 30 seconds. When we hold on to something cold for 30 seconds, this will cue our mammalian diving reflex, which is a natural reflex, and this occurs in all mammals and humans. So this causes our body chemistry to change, and our heart rate will drop down immediately, and our parasympathetic nervous system will become activated, which can help support us with our relaxation response. Intense exercise, this can help us with naturally releasing endorphins, which can help combat negative thoughts. So that's really helpful as well for some folks. Paired muscle relaxation, so taking some deep breaths and tensing up and releasing our muscles. To kind of do paired muscle relaxation, you have to do one set of muscles at a time. So like holding your fists and then releasing them, and really focusing on how that feels and how relaxed your muscles feel and how tense they may have been feeling before the activity. Also pace breathing, which we did some breathing as well. And again, the pace breathing is another way to cure our parasympathetic nervous system.
And next we have like meditation and spiritual practices. Anything we can encourage with this can be helpful too, just helping anyone connect with something that they celebrate or that they participated in their family. And if there isn't spiritual practice, even a meditation can be really helpful at times. And like we mentioned before, with the polyvagal breathing, with doing the slow breath out, as simple as we can do, just do it for 3, 5, 10 minutes straight, and just help you get into that state where you're only concentrated on the breathing.
And wellness tips. So when we talk about wellness, we're really talking about our mental health wellness and how our mental health is impacted by our wellness, and our wellness can be impacted by our mental health, and really help recognizing and identifying and exploring that with the folks that we work with. So we might go over some tips. So exploring, how are you sleeping? How are you eating? What's going on for you? When you're feeling really stressed, what are you doing for yourself? And then exploring like some things that they can do to help support those pieces. I'm not sleeping well. Okay, well, is that something you want to change? Is that something you want to work on? If that is, how can I help support you with that? So really talking about tips around our mental health wellness, that also goes into self-care. So taking care of ourselves and doing what we need for ourselves, taking moments and taking breaks and kind of doing things that we need to do to help support our own wellness, but support ourselves in general.
Next thing we have is apps. If a young person has a phone, a device, there are a lot of apps out there that can support someone in the moment. We have a few named here that are some of our go-tos. Woebot is a really great one. It is an AI robot app that is trained in CBT. This is something that can run young people and adults through exercises, do mood tracking, and just have these really cute videos to help teach them skills and lessons along the way. Calm Harm is another really good app, especially when dealing with any self-harm behaviors, helping someone keep track of that with skills, strategies, and just going through all of it so that they can keep themselves safe as much as possible through the help of the app. And we have Calm, we have Headspace, and Insight Timer. There's a lot more than this. This is definitely the tip of the iceberg when it comes to apps. And again, in our resource package, we will have links to all of these. I do recommend checking them out, clicking on those links and seeing what apps are available out there, trying them out. So that's the other thing. When you're suggesting an app for a young person, it's nice if you're able to try it out yourself first. Just really seeing how it works, how it understands, especially when it comes to Woebot. If you could give it a try for a week and just see what that's like, I think it's cute and it's insightful.
And organized activities. So this might be yoga, martial arts, sports, volunteering, music lessons, anything that really the person you're working with identifies needing more of. Sometimes we recognize, like when working with folks, we might ask about connections to community, and this can also help support that, right? So are you needing volunteering For your school, do you need those hours? What are some of the things that you like to do? What can you try and volunteer at? When you ask youth that, I find that a lot of them are like, oh, I forgot that I need those hours. I forgot that I, need to be volunteering somewhere, and then exploring what would feel the best for them. So volunteering at a library or at your local, actually, I'm not even too sure. A lot of folks usually say library first go to, but just exploring that with that youth, what's going to feel best for them.
Next, we want to look at distractions. Distractions are just a real great part of any safety plan, and anything to help a young person out. We just need them safe in a moment, and a distraction is a great way to do that, just to keep their mind up of what's happening. This is usually the most common one that young people are suggesting for themselves. And that can be anything like listening to music, playing video games, watching a movie or show, doing some art, some drawing, time with friends, anything that's really going to help get their mind off of what's happening in the crisis situation. The one thing too is I do talk to parents, and parents get concerned about this one. Parents are concerned about, well, they're just going to get in crisis every time he wants to play video games. And we just want to remind parents, but the purpose of this is to be safe in a moment. So if they are doing it for that purpose, I'd rather them do that for attempting to manipulate a situation to play some games, instead of that not be available to them when they really need it. And there's other things we can do around that. We can set time to it, because it's not about distracting just to move on from it. After the distraction's over, that's when we want to go, what's next? How can I help myself out in this crisis situation? It doesn't end at the distraction, but that's where we're going to start, just to help out in that situation.
And with distraction too, having those conversations with the clients that you're providing service to. Is this a distraction, and when does it become avoidance? And what does that look like? And like Justin was saying, putting maybe some parameters, like it's a distraction when it's used this way. Did you use it this way, or did you play video games for a really long period of time and then avoided that? So always trying to come back to that, and figuring out what's the best way to help support that youth in that moment while using distraction, and not allowing it to become an avoiding of the situation or whatever's going on for them. Seeking connections. Sorry, Justin.
Okay, go ahead, Megan.
Seeking connections with family, friends, community. So this also kind of goes back to organized activities. So really supporting getting that person connected with the community. So that could be organized activities and volunteering, like we had said. Even just going to the library. Sometimes we forget that it's there. But it's such a great resource for families. Connecting with families, friends as well. So, sometimes we work with individuals who have family that are kind of far away. So, how can you support getting connected with them and having that connection pretty consistently? We're going to maybe FaceTime every Friday or something of that nature, and helping support that connection. And encouraging that. If you're feeling like you need to chat with somebody or you need some support, reaching out to them and what feels best for them.
And what else we want to suggest too is going for a walk or being with nature. This is, I think, just a really, really important piece that I think gets overlooked sometimes, especially being in nature parks. There's so much evidence out there. We have parts of the US and parts of Europe. We actually have doctors now prescribing going out into nature for people's mental health. And if we can get young people out in nature, just being on the ground, being around trees, we know that this is going to have a really positive effect on their nervous system. So having that moment, having that time, making that planned walk, and just going on their own or finding someone else that they can do that with. Now we're just going to go through some of the resources that we would go through with caregivers. So right away, one of my favorites to do is to recommend some books and audiobooks, especially audiobooks. Audiobooks, I think, are just amazing. They're something that I think a lot of parents are busy, and caregivers are busy, and there's not enough time to sit down and read a book. And being able to find the right audiobook that's supportive to them, that they can do in transit while doing chores, where they can just get 15, 20 minutes here or there of just doing some passive listening, I think can go a long way. One of my favorite go-tos, especially when dealing with anger and behavioral challenges, with any sort of violence, is I always recommend The Explosive Child by Dr. Ross Greene. And I also recommend the abridged audio version, 2.5 hours to get all the key pieces of information just to listen to. That can be done in just a few weeks on a 15-minute drive or bus ride, a little bit at a time. It can go a long way.
So we recommend videos or websites. So we do have a list between the mobile crisis team that we do recommend to parents and caregivers. Some of these videos are to watch on their own, and some of them we're encouraging them to include their young person in with watching the video, as well as websites. Not only websites geared for parent and caregivers, but also websites geared for their youth, and so they can kind of explore and help support their youth being connected or using that as a resource too.
We also want to encourage caregivers to practice the same strategies we want their young people to use. This is a great opportunity for caregivers to model these skills. If we want a young person to do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it'd be great if they can see their parents do it. Or the same with any breathing, or a parent asking a young person, instead of saying, go do your breathing, let's breathe together and let's do it together. So we really want to encourage any caregiver to just really participate in any strategy at all, even if that is like that we are looking at the distraction of playing video games. Is there time? Can you play a little bit of video games with your young person, or be engaged with them with what that is? Any of those strategies that we want the young person to do, we want parents to engage with as well.
Yes, and encouraging one-on-one time with their young person. By building in some one-on-one time with their young person, they might, feel more connected to each other, but they might also open up doors of communication between each other. And that could look like, every Monday we go for a hike, or maybe every Friday we go out for dinner, just something that you do to spend some really good quality time with your young person.
And it can be hard to work these kind of things in, so it really takes a lot of time and energy. And we want to recognize that too for parents, that spending one-on-one time in the busy world we live in can be a big challenge. So even if it's just a moment, and you can work out that moment for that one-on-one time, it goes a long way. And in the same, we want to do family-based activities. What can we do as a family? And family is different for everyone. And what that looks like for that young person and that caregiver, and what can happen as a family. Can it be a shared meal? Can it be a shared experience, such as a movie or reading together? Anything at all that can incorporate a family together to get some activities done, and creating that sense of connection is going to really help out.
Advocating for their own personal counseling and self-care. So exploring counseling services for them, and we can support that as well, but also building in their own self-care moments as well. Not only will this be helpful for them and hopefully cause them to feel a little bit less stressed or be more emotionally available, but it can also, they can model this for their young person and kind of really support with their young person's self-care and counseling as well.
And last but not least, we have just referring to parenting groups, and anything we do to help connect with parenting groups. That's the other thing. When you're a caregiver dealing with crisis, it can seem like you're the only one going through this, and no one understands what's happening in your life and how exhausting it is and how draining it is when dealing with this. So any connection to parent groups can go a long way, so that we have caregivers know they're not alone. This is unfortunately something that's happening in a lot of families right now. So, and we have programs in Ontario, so I'd recommend checking your local areas if these exist for you in your area, but we do have Circle Security, really great program for working with under 6 and having parents connect with that. And we also have Connect groups, and the Connect groups are really great for connecting with your teenager and helping parents work with their teenager and seeing other parents and what parents are doing with their teenager. Really worth looking into, and encouraging parents to look into that themselves. There's also Parents for Children's Mental Health, PCMH. This is an Ontario-wide initiative and a lot of presence online. I imagine most people here have seen their pamphlet around at some point, and really looking at those resources and helping parents connect with the resources they have to offer. And I do know that you can reach out to them as well and to explore different ideas for the area you're looking at. So it's worth also, seeing what you can do to help a parent get comfortable and connect them with the local PCMH. And just briefly, we're going to go through some resources, links, and some apps that we like to use and like to share. So, and we'll put these sometimes in safety plans, or we'll send them in separate emails or text messages, depending on the style of communication that's needed. So we do have the Kids Help Phone. And again, these sites are really wonderful to look at. Take some time getting to know them yourself, knowing what's available on these sites so you can help guide young people and caregivers to go through them. TalkSuicide.ca, they do crisis support, resources for suicide ideation, and this is both for young people and for caregivers. And Good to Talk, again, another crisis support and resources for post-secondary students. And we also have Hope for Wellness. So it's a helpline and resources for individuals identifying as Indigenous people. And then we have, is it nashina.org? This is crisis support and resources for individuals identifying as Muslim. We have blackyouth.ca, and it's a helpline and resources for individuals identifying as Black-bodied. So, and we have Woebot Help, and this is the app for the Woebot app. Really recommend this one. Like, honestly, Woebot's so cute. Just everyone needs to check out Woebot. And we also have Calm Harm, and again, for the self-harming app, and Breathwork, really good for just guided breathing and helping people with those moments, just so they can, sometimes people have a hard time doing on their own, and having anything that's going to help guide them is going to help out. And then we have eMood Tracker. eMood Tracker, I think, is a pretty special app as well. I like this one a lot. It really helps connect with your mood and to start tracking what your mood's like. What I also like about Mood Tracker is there is an option to send your results to a professional. So there's a button you can click on this, and it will prompt you to send your results through email to one of your healthcare service providers that you want to know how you've been doing. And this is a great way for young people to help connect. Also, one thing I like about eMood Tracker is there's a built-in part that lets you develop safety plans. So if anyone wants to do their own without having the guidance through crisis support, or they're not able to do it at that time, the option with this app works really well. So I just want to check in with Aaliyah and just see, is there anything we're able to do for this, getting this file out to people today? Like I said, if we're not able to in the chat here, we will find a way to make sure people get access to this. Yes, Catherine, thank you for your question. The apps are all free. All the ones that we suggest here are free apps. There may be a pay option, but it's not necessary to use the apps with the pay options. These are all ones that we use, and they're all for free. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do then is I was hoping that we could do this one together through the file download, and that's okay that we can't. We will do it together with the shared screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the presentation for a moment. I'm going to go through the instructions here with everyone. I'll leave the presentation and share my screen with the lists I'm mentioning in here, and these lists will all be available when we can get this out to you. So using the NVC, so the NVC stands for Nonviolent Communication, and it was developed by Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. And he believed that our feelings are all connected to a need. So that whatever I do is when I'm explaining this to young people and parents is that we want to help them understand that all their emotions are valid and they're all trying to tell them something. They're giving them the news. That's what they're there for. They're just giving the news. And so these emotions, whenever we're having what we call painful emotions, and that is the emotions such as anger, sadness, fear, guilt, when those emotions show up for us, that's telling us you have a need that is not being met right now. And once we can then get to that point going, oh, so you have a need that's not being met. That's why you're angry. Let's explore what that need could be. And can we do anything to get that need met for you? And the same whenever we're having our pleasureful emotions, such as happiness, gratitude, pride. That's letting you know what, your needs are being met. Here's this amazing feeling you get to have now. So how we start this off, and I'll go through the instructions, share my screen, and see if there's something that we can do together. So before I do this, I will invite people, if they want to get a pen and paper to write some of these down, you're welcome to do that. Some young people I work with, they don't want to do that. They just want to keep it all in their head, and that's okay as well. So the first thing we want to do is we want to find out a story for the practices. And start off this, we want to use this for real life events. But when it comes down to working with young people, we're all about the practice. So the first thing is we want to ask about a story they want to tell. Talk about something, and we want to try to see if we can focus on the observables of the situation. What did they hear? If possible, the exact words. What did they actually see? What happened? What did they smell? What did they touch? Just the observables. What we want to try to avoid is the story is, I'm angry at my sister, right? Okay, so what happened with your sister? What did your sister say exactly? And just really see what we can do to make that clear. And for this part, when I am practicing with young people, I'll say, tell me about anything that happened to you in the last 3 days and you didn't like that it happened. And it could be something as simple as I stubbed my toe going up the stairs. I think most people can relate. That really sucks. And we can use just something as simple as that as to practice with this activity. Or it can be something bigger, like I had a really big fight with my friend and we're not talking anymore. And again, we can go through that. We can see where are the emotions, what are the needs. So then we want to give them the option with the charts or the wheels is to look at what are their emotions. And usually I'll get them, for the older kids, I'll get them to pick 2 or 3. For the younger kids, we'll stick with just 1. We don't want to get them too overwhelmed. And when we do with any of the older young people, getting them to pick their 2 or 3 emotions, then we get them to center in on what one, because we do have multiple feelings for any situation, but what one stood out the most, what was the strongest emotion, and we're going to start focusing on there. And if they want, they can repeat this activity for each emotion. Then with the help of the second chart, or needs chart, we're going to look at what needs were not met or were met in the situation. And we're just going to go through the list, give everyone time to look through that and to find that. And then lastly, we want to think about a request. What can they do to get this need met? Is there a request they can make from themselves, something they can do on their own? Or do they need help from someone else? Do they need to ask a caregiver, a friend, a teacher? What can they do to see how they can get that need met? And that's it. That's the activity, and where we just want to leave it there and let them sit with that now. So I'm going to stop sharing the presentation. I'll open up a file and just let everyone follow along with me with this.
And while Justin does that, I just kind of want to talk about like how amazing this activity is, just because it allows space and time to unpack some of those situations. So, oh, I felt angry because mom didn't buy me a piece of pizza. Okay, is it really about the pizza? And then you can unpack that a little bit more, and it gets to a point where like maybe a young person says, I feel like mom never buys me something I want. And so you can actually like kind of hone in on what's really going on for them in that situation. So this is such a great activity for that.
Okay, there we go. So hopefully this will be big enough for everyone to see as I share it. Okay, so right here, this is the comprehensive list. I am going to increase the font here and hopefully, and Megan, let me know, is this readable? Can people see this?
It's a lot better.
Okay,
Justin.
sounds good. So yeah, so we're going off the comprehensive list. This is the list that I would give older young people and parents to work with. So I'll invite everyone right now to do just like I said in the instructions. Think about a situation that happened to you in the last 3 days and you didn't like that it happened. It could be something small. It could be like you ate a bad burrito, or it could be something more extreme. Anything at all, just anything that happened, just thinking about what happened in your life and you didn't like that it happened. And once you have that, once you have your story and have this thing that happened, and just take a moment and I'll see if I can get as much as I can in here with this feeling. So here's our feeling list here. So, and I'll try to see if I can, no, I'll stick to the 100% so people can see it better. So just an idea. So just go through, pick any 2 or 3 emotions that you felt when this situation happened. And hopefully you got the 2 or 3 emotions that helped you connect with that situation. And take a moment to look at the or think about the emotions that you did have and just think to yourself, what one was the strongest at that point? And you can just put a little star beside it if you want, or just have that one in your mind. Next, I'm going to scroll us down to our needs list. And again, I'm not going to be able to fit all of them on the screen for here. So just to get an idea, some of the needs that are will possibly be present. So now that you have that one emotion that you're concentrating on, what are 2 or 3 needs that happened to you that weren't met for you in that moment? If one of these happened, maybe it would help that feeling out. Now let's just give everyone a few more moments with the screen here. Okay. And then lastly, just take a look at those needs and just see what need, if that one was met, what do you think would help that emotion out the most? And you can just put a little star beside it or just keep it in mind. And then lastly, we need to look at what's the request? How can we get this need met? Now, sometimes we can go back to the original situation and get that need fulfilled that way. But sometimes we might have to take a whole different perspective to get that need met. So anything at all, can it happen in that moment? Is it something you have to plan for down the road? But we really want to bring attention to just getting that need met in any way we can, even if it means helping out in the future. How can I get this need met in the future? Just going to stop sharing the screen now. Okay. Thanks everyone for participating with that one. So I'm just going to go through the example that I wrote down for myself going through this about something that happened to me. And if anyone is feeling brave and feels like they want to participate and just share theirs, we can take maybe 1 or 2 people. And so if you do want to share, raise your hand and we'll get to you and I'll just share what I have here. So for my situation, I had that my cat woke me up at 5:30 in the morning with her just non-stopping meows when I didn't have to get up until 8. And how I felt was annoyed, tired, and irritable. But I started annoyed. That was the one that really did it for me. I was so annoyed that this cat would not let me sleep. And then going through what were my needs? What did I need in that moment that I felt annoyed with my cat waking me up at 5:30 in the morning? Well, I needed some comfort. I definitely needed some sleep. And I needed respect. Come on, cat, respect me. I need sleep. But I did start sleep as what it is I need the most. So what should I do? How can I get this need met? Well, one idea I can do to get this need met is maybe before I go to bed next time, I'm going to shut the door to the bedroom when I want to sleep in past 5:30 in the morning so that I know that gets to happen for me. Now, is there anyone that is open to or wants to share what they put down for this? And please don't feel obligated to, but if you feel like you want to, please raise your hand. Oh, okay, Felicia, please share with us.
Okay, thank you. So my situation was that my daughter wasn't eating as much as I wanted her to eat.
Hmm.
I'm really trying to help her like gain some weight as the doctor suggested and things like that. But she is healthy and she's at the right size for her age. But it was kind of frustrating me at that moment. So I believe my feelings were frustrated, overwhelmed, and it was also tired. And then my needs were food and nutrition, um, sleep, and then also just patience as well as a feeling. And so, how I could go about kind of fixing it for like food and nutrition, I was thinking of new creative recipes or things that she might like or enjoy or be fun to eat. So I think like that's what I was leaning towards to kind of help better the situation.
Alicia, thank you for sharing. And I love that. I love that strategy. The request you can make it yourself. I'll be like, yeah, can we switch up the menu? Can we find something interesting here
Yeah.
to eat? I love that. It's perfect.
I love
What
the
a great,
activity too. Thank
yeah,
you.
I'm glad. I'm glad. Okay. And we have time for one more person if they want to share. Okay. And that's okay. We can definitely move on. So, and just bear with me. I'm just going to share the presentation. It will put us back at the beginning. That'll get us back to where we need to be.
So while Justin does that, I just want to like say again, thank you for Felicia for sharing. And this is such a great activity because it also takes us kind of takes a step back and allows us to, you know, be self-aware about what are we feeling in these moments and then connecting them to the needs and then the unpacking piece, right? So this is such an amazing activity and strategy to use. So thank you, Justin, so much for taking us through it.
And this actually brings us to the end of our presentation and just want to open it up actually for any questions. So we have about 10 minutes or so for some questions. So again, if people want to raise their hand for any questions, please do so now. Okay, and one thing I will do, Leah, I'll just check in with you. Is there anything that we were able to do to get that file out to people?
Yeah, I just put in the chat the link
Okay.
to the Crisis Workers Society of Ontario website. So what I'm going to
Okay.
do is we're going to post this recording, and then I've
Mhm.
asked the president to also post the resources, if that's
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
So people will be able to find it on the website.
Okay,
Did you
perfect.
let them know what's in that? It might be helpful to know, like, there's the
Yeah,
crisis plan
absolutely.
and yeah.
Yeah, so we do in that package, what we do have is we do have a blank crisis plan in there. Just so the same one I shared in the presentation. So and that can be just used for you and your clients just to walk through the process. The feelings and needs lists that I put up there are also in there. So there are 3 pages per each of those file, 1 page of feelings, 1 page of needs, and then on the 3rd page is actually a worksheet to help guide yourself and clients through that process. And we have it set, there's 3 different ones set there. So there's one that's called NVC Feelings and Needs. That's the one I shared. There's one called NVC Young People. Now, this one is definitely more simplified for people that might be overwhelmed with the more comprehensive list. And then we have a feelings and needs wheel. So it's a wheel of feelings and a wheel of needs for the younger ones where we just want them to connect with one feeling and maybe one need about a situation. And again, they all have the worksheet attached to that. We also have a page that is all the resources we talked about in this presentation are there. And so please take a look at those. If you want to look at some strategies, there are strategies and skills that we did not have time to mention in our presentation as well. And we have a list of resources. These are websites that we use. These are books we use. And we have them categorized by age range for caregivers. And we even have some recommended reading for anyone doing crisis work, things that have helped both Megan and I out in our career that we wanted to share with everyone as well. Links to all the apps are in there as well. So really, please take some time to check it out. I'm also going to put my email address into the chat. So if you want this file sooner than later, please send me an email and I'll get this to you today. And so you can take a look at it sooner than later instead of waiting for the website. But Leah, thank you so much for the support on this part and getting this package going to be able to set up on the website for people to download as they need.
And thank you to Megan and Justin. Thank you to both of you for agreeing to present and share your extensive experience and wealth of knowledge with our Crisis Workers Society. So, and lots of people across the province. So I really appreciate that.
Perfect. Thanks, Leah. Thanks for the invitation. We had a lot of fun being here today. And thank you everyone for your patience with us today and for your attention. I know 2 hours is a long time to sit through a presentation, so we really appreciate everyone who was able to show up and be here.
All right. And feel free to join us for the remainder of the week. We have lots of presentations booked every day between 2 and 4. So, all right. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
All right, folks. So if you're needing anything else or have any questions, please feel free to ask now. We have a few more minutes and then we'll be signing off as well.
Sorry, I didn't get Justin's email.
Yeah. Did it not come through to the chat? Okay.
No, I don't know. I think it said I left the conversation, but
Okay. Yep. Yep. So here, I'll just give it to you here now. So just Justin. Do you have something to write down with right now?
Yep.
Yeah. So it's Justin, Justin.
Yep.
McLean, McLean.
MCLEAN.
Yep. At Lutherwood, LUTHER wood.ca.
Thank you so much, Justin. Have a great day.
Take care.
Bye, Megan. Great presentation.
Thank you. Thanks so much for joining and participating.
Thank you.
Okay. Take care, everyone.
All right, bye, folks.